Many in legacy media love mass shootings. You guys love it. Now, I'm not saying that you love the tragedy, but I am saying that you love the ratings. Crying white mothers are ratings gold to you and many in the legacy media in the back. And notice I said crying white mothers because there are thousands of grieving black mothers in Chicago every weekend, and you don't see town halls for them, do you?
Planning to go to this event last night, and tell me if I'm mischaracterizing any of this. And you sent in, at the request of a CNN producer, you sent in a number of questions, statements you wanted to make, questions that you wanted to ask of the politicians on the stage, and they rewrote one of your questions? Is that right?
Yes, sir. So what had happened was 4 days ago, I had gotten contacted by a lady named Carrie Stevenson from CNN. She had asked me originally to just write a speech. It was going to be at the town hall at the BB&T Center, so I agreed. I felt like it would be the right thing to do, be able to go speak my part, as well as open eyes to a few things that I thought that could make this situation a little better. From there, 3 days ago, so the next day after that, we had gotten, I got an email back from her, and she asked for more of questions rather than a speech, which I was totally fine with. So I wrote little less of a speech and more of questions that I wanted to ask at the town hall. The day after that, it was more of just questions. She asked for just questions that I would like to ask. So I gave her my questions, and then yesterday at about 5:15, I made contact with her, and she had asked if I just asked her one question. So what they had actually done was wrote out a question for me, because in my interview with CNN, I had talked about arming the teachers if they were willing to arm themselves in the school to carry on campus. And they had, she had taken that of what I had briefed on and actually wrote that question out for me. So I have that question here if you'd like me to ask it for you.
Well, but I just want to make sure I have this straight. So you sent them a long, in effect, essay on what you thought, but they put
Yes,
their
sir.
own words in the question, and they weren't the same as the words you had sent in? They were the producer's words?
Absolutely. They had taken what I had wrote and what I had briefed on and talked about, and they actually wrote the question for me.
But not with your words. I mean, they put their own words into your question, even after they'd asked you to send questions in. But that seems dishonest.
It definitely did, and that's kind of why I didn't go last night. Originally, I had thought that it was going to be more of my own question and my own say, and then it turned out to be more of just a script. And she had actually said that over the phone, that I needed to stick to the script.
That's remarkable. What did you watch last night?
I watched a little bit of it. I kind of felt like I didn't really need to, because I knew that as soon as what had happened with me, that it was going to be more scripted and wasn't actually going to be actual questions. Then I didn't feel the need to fully watch it.
So if CNN was willing to reword your question, put their own words in your mouth, and as you said, you didn't want to go along with that, do you think they did that to other people last night?
I mean, absolutely. From what I did see, I'd seen a couple people that had asked questions before I did leave my house. And it was a little piece of paper cut out. And I know for a fact that nobody cut their own paper out and wrote their own question, especially when they were all based off the same topic. So to me, from right there, it showed that this isn't correct. Why are they all have the same size piece of paper with a short little question on it? So to
I
me,
guess
it was a total
what's surprising is you're not just some person off the street. You're a survivor of this shooting, and the point was to listen to you, to the survivors of the shooting. Were you surprised by the way they behaved?
I mean, honestly, it was very shocking to me, because we just went through such a horrific tragedy. For them to take that and now make such a big news cast over what they want to hear, it was very upsetting to me.
It's shocking to us too, trust me, in the actual journalism business. Colton, thank you. Thank you for telling us that. It's really interesting.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Godspeed.
Absolutely.
We've got new information tonight about the Parkland shooting itself. Stoneman Douglas High School had an armed guard on the scene, it turns out, during the shooting. When the shooting happened, that guard remained outside did nothing and waited for police. Of course, by the time police arrived, it was too late to save the 17 people who had been murdered. This is just one more layer of government failure in the Parkland shooting. There are a number of them. The FBI had 2 credible leads. It balked. The police visited the shooter's house more than 3 dozen times and in the end did nothing. The student had been suspended for fighting an assault but never referred to prosecutors. If he had a felony conviction, it might have barred him from getting a gun. Over and over again, the government failed to protect the people of Florida, those kids, the ones who died, either because of incompetence or the sheer impossibility of catching every threat. And now they're telling us to disarm. Gary Farmer is a Florida state senator.
And there was an article published today in The Federalist, which I believe is a conservative blog by a guy named Jason Hansen. And he suggests that exactly what you said at the beginning, could this actually be a result of a lack of healthy masculine role models in our society that causes what he suggests or alludes to is this idea of the revenge of the lost boys. Right. And that goes back to exactly your first point, Tucker.
Well, there's something going on there, and we're doing a whole series on this next month. I don't fully understand it. I don't want to pretend that I do. But there's something about constantly attacking boys for being boys, which is what our society obviously specializes in, that causes them in some cases to embrace this kind of caricature of masculinity, which is violent and grotesquely sexualized. It's a parody of masculinity. And I think maybe that's a response, at least in part, to the attacks on boys for being boys. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. And I think what's interesting here, and it's really, really sad as a mother, is that we are starting to, there's been so many shootings that we're able, as a psychotherapist in the psychological community, actually create psychological profiles on data on why these men commit these kinds of crimes. And one of them is domestic violence. A second thing that goes back to what you were just saying is that a lot of them have a lack of a male model figure in their family life. So it's a very complex issue, and I don't think it's one thing or the other, but just the fact that we're talking about this in 2018 on Fox News tonight and discussing gender and identity and ideas around masculinity shows that as a society, as a country, we're facing a human crisis. And one of the things that's being brought to head is these discussions about what is a new masculine identity or a paradigm shift that's happening in our culture.
Yeah, maybe having a dad at home, maybe pretending that wasn't a big deal was a mistake.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of single moms out there raising kids, and obviously we're starting to see some issues, arising from these things when we don't have
some of us called that, but whatever. All right, Nell, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.